Hello friends, Jenkins here, bringing you another Dota 2 video on behalf of Dota Alchemy, and in this video I'm going to be talking about my obsession with characters in video games. And I don't mean that in a Mason kind of way, where I'll look up hentai of those characters. I just mean I tend to spam one hero at a certain point in Dota, and this is true for other games as well. In Smash, I basically just play Little Mac and King DDD. And as of this week, one hero that I've been winning a lot with and that I've been spamming is Ursa. And not just any Ursa, Ursa as a 4 position. And I think this is really genuinely good, and I want to show you a replay where I did some Ursa things and talk about it a little bit. Before I get into the replay, I want to quickly justify why I think Ursa is legitimately a good support hero, not just a meme pick. Reason number 1, this happened with Beastmaster and Brewmaster in the previous patch. You have these heroes that get buffed, and then everybody starts picking them as cores, and all of a sudden you have this draft, and I'm speaking of like competitive, Puppy or somebody will be drafting, they have 3 cores selected, enemy team leaves like a Broodmother or a Bat Rider available where it's an amazing Brood or Bat game, one of these kind of like Trump picks. All of a sudden, Puppy or whatever the captain is will flex the Ursa or the Beastmaster or the Brewmaster, like I said in the previous patch, to be a support, and then they crush the game because they have this uncountered Trump hero. All of a sudden people realize that a support version of that hero is not that bad. Everybody does it. Like, this happens in almost every patch with these incredibly buffed heroes. It just takes people a while to recognize their strengths. And then reason number 2 is a more practical, less anecdotal reason, but essentially Ursa just has incredible base stats right now. With Fury Swipes, there's very few heroes that can trade with him. With 8 armor, he has higher physical resist than any other hero, most other heroes in Dota, I should say. He's got good strength. And then with the movement speed, you no longer need to build into like an Orb of Venom or Boots First in order to actually do damage to people, which means that you can buy Stout Shield, you can buy Orb of Venom plus regen. You essentially have more options available to you in terms of your starting items, so you can be a very efficient support because you don't need the boots. In terms of starting items, in my opinion, there are 2 builds. There's the build where you go for an Orb of Venom first, and then potentially get a Windlace or a Stout Shield, and then 1 Tango. And the reason that you would go for that build is if you think that there's a lot of kill potential, if you actually commit to get a kill. Like, let's say if you have a stunner in your lane, but essentially if you think you have a lot of kill threat in the lane, then what you want to do is just keep killing them, and then instead of using a bunch of regen to get your HP, you want to just kill yourself to the tier 2. I consider this hero to be very similar to Skywrath Mage, except instead of trading your mana for the enemy's HP, you're trading your HP for the enemy's HP. However, in this game, I was thinking that I didn't really want to leave the lane for as long as it would take me to kill myself to the tier 2. I wanted to just keep sitting the lane and destroying the Monkey King. Just keep, hitting my Fury Swipes on him because Bristleback is countered by Monkey King. So it's just like, all right, this guy's going to have a rough lane if I don't just sit here and act as a meat shield for him. So I went for a bunch of regen instead. So anytime I'm playing Ursa or any hero that just trades very effectively with people in the lanes, I will look to fight the bounty runes like this. So essentially I see the Monkey King here, and he's a courier, so he's faster than me, and I think he might be baiting. So he runs into his tower, and I don't chase him into the tower. He runs up to the top, and I back off there for a brief moment. And then I thought he'd maybe run up to the high ground. I said to myself, I'm not going to run up the high ground, but I am still chasing him. The reason for that is because essentially if he turns around and tries to get like a Jingu hit on me, I will hit him twice and then run away. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I'm not focusing on killing him. This has nothing to do with killing him, although we do end up killing him here, just because his team show themselves bot, and we realize we can kill them if they commit to us this far. But essentially, I'm just looking purely to trade. The ideal state for this game to be in terms of the lane is where they lose all of their regen, and then I'm just an Ursa who sits on the creep wave, and Bristle sits on the creep wave, and they have to sit back in their tower waiting for regen. We get every single deny, we get every single pull off, they lose the XP fight, and then eventually I can just go jungle, Bristle can have the lane solo, and then I become a core. That is like the ideal state in this game, and in order to achieve that, it doesn't matter if I kill them. All that matters is I'm getting hits off on them, because if I kill them, they come back, they have more regen. It really doesn't matter. Like, of course, we'll get some gold, but we'll also get gold from is getting CS when they can't trade with us. Like, effectively, it's all the same thing, and it's less risky to just go for the harass. In this case, they gave us free kills, as this guy actually eventually walks up and he trades with me. The reason I'm trading with him is because I see that there's no Batrider. He TP'd away, so he can't be here. And even with the Jingu, I thought that we could trade with him. He lets us get a stack of the Viscous Nasal Goo on him, and then that allows us to essentially dive. So these people have essentially just misplayed this lane, but even if they didn't die in these scenarios, they would still be trading ineffectively, and therefore it would result in them essentially being dead because it would just be lost time. So the next thing that I want to show you is something that's relatively simple, but incredibly important in my opinion for Ursa in the current patch, even as a core role Ursa, and that's essentially like the position that the enemy has to be in for you to get efficient harass on them. So if we look at Fury Swipes, it doesn't do a lot of damage at level 1, it's only 7, but if you keep stacking it up, it does more and more and more damage, and of course the movement speed buff on Ursa means that you can run people down, but you need distance to chase them, and as a result, this position that Monkey King is in right now is perfect for at least getting some damage on him. So I'm not in the location where I could just run at him and do damage to him. However, I'm coming with an Orb of Venom. I'm telling Bristleback, alright, let's go on this guy. He's far forward. Bristle can get stacks of the Viscous Nasal Goo on him. It's not really about me being there. It's more about like the Monkey King is in a position where we can start a gank on him where he can't just turn around and fight us now. So now I'm here. Bristle's chasing. He knows that I'm coming, and this guy, he's just totally fucked. Like, he has the Jingu, and he has the stun, but it's not enough. And we know that it's not enough, but the only reason that we're able to kill him here, the only reason we're able to take this efficient trade, is because he was out of position in the first place. If he wasn't out of position, we couldn't do this. And this is one of the main things that I see people screw up on Ursa in this patch, is that there will be just a regular wave here, a regular wave for the enemy here as well, and then people will dive, they'll feed the tower on Ursa, and that's a problem. You can actually create game states where you're able to kill them, where either there's a double wave pushing into the tower and you can dive them, or the wave is back here and you can just chase them into the tower where you never get into the position where you could die because they're too low that even if they trade like them, or if they turn around like the Monkey King did, they still die. And the way that you do that, the way that you force this game state is, number one, you probably honestly want to deward this camp and just make sure that they can't block it. You want to be able to pull this, so you pull it back, as we can see here. So we essentially chased him because he was out of position, and because I'm in the area, and I see that the creep wave, the timing is like when it's by the tower, you can just pull it right into the creep wave, let it hit you standing right here, and I pull the creeps back. And what this is going to do is it's going to pull it back temporarily where we can run at the Monkey King, run at the Batrider, and then also this is, if I hit these creeps here, this is going to send a double wave eventually into them. So I think the ideal way to end the laning stage on Ursa is to take the enemy safe lane tower. So the way that I do that is not by hitting the tower itself. Instead, I just take the easy camp, cut the creep wave, take the easy camp, cut the creep wave. The reason that I'm doing this is because if I try to run out all the other lanes, I don't think we're great at 5-manning into them right now, and we have 2 cores, actually 3 cores that are farming really well, so there isn't really a necessity for us to run into them. Instead, I'd rather just sit up here with my Bristleback, have him hit the tower, I cut the creep wave, and if they run at me to kill me, they are going to need to commit a lot of heroes to deal with me because of the ultimate that Ursa has. However, if I run into them and I use the ultimate, it doesn't matter, I'm just feeding them a kill. But if they come up and they try to chase me through the trees and I have the phase boots and quelling blade, it's going to cost them a lot to get that kill. And I think that is probably the greatest contribution that you can have on Ursa at this point in the game, unless your other heroes are able to fight. But I don't think Ursa is the hero that makes you able to fight at this point in the game until you pick up something like a Blink Dagger. So once Bristleback and I took the enemy safe lane tower, basically Juggernaut moved towards that lane because that was now the safest area of the map to farm because there's no tower there for the enemies. And for Bristle and I, our job became to make space elsewhere on the map, to essentially do what we were doing in the top lane, except somewhere else. So ideally we'd like to take good trades, ideally we'd like to take good fights, force the enemy team to split up and, you know, get kills. That's in an ideal world, but at the very least, forcing rotations like this is great. So because I had this in Rage, and Pangolier has his ultimate, and Bristle, if he was alive, he's very tanky. Essentially, like any of these heroes, what they like to do is exactly this, which is just waste the enemy team's time while your carry is farming, maybe potentially bait the enemy team out of position, like they're very out of position right now. I thought Batrider was going to lasso me here. He did, but fortunately I was able to get the Enrage off before that, kill the Slardar, and because Bristle is here and we took the safe lane tower, Jug is pushing top, which is going to force somebody, presumably the Monkey King there. We basically figured that this is a really good fight. I was being really careful about not stacking up on the Bristleback because I didn't want to get potentially Echo Slammed or double fissured by the Earthshaker. Lich puts his frost armor bullshit on me, which makes me feel like, okay, I'm tanky, I can run in at the very least, trade my HP for the enemy team, maybe somebody dying, and then fortunately the enemy team splits up, so we chase onto the Earthshaker, who was basically the only one of them having a good game, and because they split in this way, we take a really, really good fight, and I didn't even need the Blink Dagger, which ideally I would like to have that as an item before I fight. I honestly think even a 4-roll Ursa probably can just jungle and hard farm the Blink Dagger. But in this situation, they essentially allowed us to fight them successfully while also making space for our Juggernaut. As an Ursa in the mid game, in my opinion, there are two things that I think you should be focusing on. You can do both of them simultaneously, but you should essentially look to make space with the fact that you are so incredibly hard to kill once you have the Enrage. So essentially use the hero as a bodyguard, as a damage soak, as a guy that puts himself in so much of a dangerous location that the enemy team is forced to go on them, kind of like a bristleback. Then your entire enemy team comes in and you maybe die, but you're just a support, so who cares? And then number two, you want to look to burst an important target in fights, in particular probably with somebody else's stun, because if somebody's stunned, Ursa's basically going to kill almost any hero in Dota. But there are a couple of points that I want to make before ending out this video, and that's basically that you should look to fight around Roche as much as you can with Ursa, or if the enemy team is fighting somewhere else, look to go take Roche with like a +1. You don't even need any sort of lifesteal. You can just have somebody else tank it, and you can very easily solo Roche, especially if you go for this typical build right now, which is going no points in your queue. You can basically just destroy Roshan in a heartbeat. So if you put a huge focus around that on the map, you're going to be applying a lot of pressure to the enemy team, even if you don't take it, just because they know that they're always going to have to deal with you being an annoying piece of shit, just sitting around the Roshan pit and making that a threat on the map. And then the second point that I want to make to close out this video is that I think that this hero is very strong as a support right now, because there are heroes in the game that Ursa completely hard counters, such as Lifestealer, such as Sven. He's very good at laning against these heroes, which are typical carries right now. And then also, everybody's building Midases. So if all of the games are going late, you can absolutely get away with more, as you see me feeding here, but everybody else dies because this is exactly what you want to happen on Ursa. But essentially, the games are almost always going late, and as a result, you can have these greedier core-like supports, and then when you go late game, you essentially have 4 cores. It doesn't matter if the enemy team has Midases, because you have an extra core. So I really think that this hero right now is one of the perfect picks, and I hope you win some pubs with it. So anyway, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Hope to see you in another video.